Thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome to my channel. I'm Geordie from Geordie's Cards, and today I'm going to be making this cute little happy birthday card using stamps from Hello Bluebird. I made this little gift box from Fawn and I wanted a little card to match, so that's why I chose these stamps. These are an oldie but a goodie. They've been out for a little while, but I've used them quite a lot and I really love them, and I do have the coordinating dies for these ones. So I started out with a piece of 5.5 by 4.25 white cardstock, and I'm going to use this little hexagon die to create some apertures in the front of my card. So I'm going to put 3 in the top left corner and 3 in the bottom right. Once I'd done that, I took some Bristol Smooth cardstock, again it's 5.5 by 4.25, and I took my scattered Straw Distress Oxide Ink, and I just ink blended the bottom right hand corner and the top left hand corner. This is going to sit behind my card front, so it's just you're just gonna see the color through the apertures that I've made in the card front. So I didn't worry about ink blending the whole lot, so there you can see I'm just checking that they're gonna cover up the holes in the front of the card. And I didn't do anything fancy. I didn't splatter any water or do anything else. I just kept it like that. I then took a strip of Bristol Smooth cardstock that I had left over, and I just ink blended some colour on that. And I'm going to use Oliver's stitched ABCs from Fawn to cut out the word B from that piece of cardstock. So there you can see I did that off camera, and I decided that I would like to have a little bit of shadow behind it. So I took some black cardstock scrap that I had left over, and I die cut the letters from that as well. And once I'd done that off camera, I glued the yellow pieces on top of the black pieces, but I just off-centered it a little bit so that you could see a bit of a shadow behind. So I'm just using my reverse tweezers and my Fawn liquid glue just to adhere those together and create a little sentiment, which I'm going to put in the middle of my card today. So often when I'm card making, I will start with my images and I will color those first and then kind of arrange the card front. But today I did it a little bit differently. I decided to do the card front first. I had a good idea of what I wanted the card front to look like, but I wasn't 100% sure which stamps I was going to use. I knew it was going to be the B stamps, but I didn't know how I was going to place it on. So I kind of wanted to do the card front first to get an idea of where I was going to place everything. So just attaching the last letter on there, just making sure it's all lined up, and pretty happy with how those turned out. I think it looks really cute. So now I'm going to, before I adhere those down to the card front, I want to put the rest of my sentiment, which is going to be Happy B-Day. This little stamp comes from the Hello Bluebird set, which is funnily enough called Happy B-Day. And I wanted to stamp that on there before I had stuck the letters down, because I thought it probably wouldn't stamp very well if I'd already stuck those down. I did have some trouble with my stamping today. I don't know what was going on. I used a Versafine Onyx black ink, and I stamped it a couple of times. Initially I used a piece of purple tape to kind of cover up the part that I didn't want, but in the end I just used the edge of my stamp pad and that worked absolutely fine. So I'm bringing the letters back on again, the die cut letters, just to try and figure out the placement of where I want the second part, which is just going to be tiny. It just says day, so it's Happy B-Day. Every time I tried to put it down, the letters were moving and I couldn't get it lined up, and in the end it was a little bit wonky, but I went with it. I think it's okay. It's kind of the joys of card making, isn't it? And I really, excuse my head sticking over the top of there, I just wanted to try and get it lined up nicely, but in the end it didn't work particularly well, so it was probably a bit of a waste of time. But it turned out okay. It wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I think, we're card makers, doesn't actually have to be perfect. It's handmade. And I think there's a kind of beauty in it being handmade and looking like it's handmade. And sometimes things go a little skew-whiff, and it's okay. It's just a card, and I think it will make somebody's day either way, whether it's absolutely perfect or whether it has a little imperfection in it. So today's card definitely has a little imperfection, but I think my friend who's going to be receiving it for her birthday will be happy nonetheless. So now that I've done that, I'm just placing my letters back down again, making sure that I have them in the right spot, and then I'm going to use my reverse tweezers and stick those down again with some liquid glue. I started from the E, thinking that I could line that up with the day part of the sentiment, and then I'm just kind of eyeballing it. I'm not doing anything precisely. I'm not measuring it out or using a grid mat to help me place the letters. I've only got 3 die cut letters, so I think I can line them up fairly easily. It might not be perfect, but again, that's okay. I can live with it. So I'm just attaching those down with the liquid glue. And once that's done, I'm going to bring in the ink blended panel that I've already created, and I'm just going to attach that together, and I'm going to use some foam squares on the back. I use quite a lot. I think I've said before that I'm normally a bit trigger happy with glue and things like that, so I use quite a few foam squares, and I'm now just lining that up and making sure it's all stuck down nicely. And that's my card front done. So I'm pretty happy with how it looks. I think it looks quite cute. I wanted to go for quite a clean and simple look today, so I didn't want to have anything too dramatic. So now I'm just placing my stamps on, trying to figure out the placement of those. I switched that little guy out for this one. I kind of wanted the 2 bees to be facing opposite directions, and I think that looks kind of cute. And then I pulled out this little honey jar, and I did go ahead and stamp that out. I actually stamped it twice in the end and used both those images on the card. So I've just pulled out my Tim Holtz stamping platform, and I'm going to use some Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink. This is Copic friendly ink, so it's perfect for colouring with my Copics. And I haven't used these stamps for a while. They have been in my stash for quite a long time, and I have used them quite a lot, but not recently. So I did stamp them down. I actually ended up stamping them down 3 times just to make sure I had a nice crisp image to work with. And then, yeah, off camera I did stamp that little honey jar again one more time. So I ended up with 2 of those. Now on to the colouring. So for my yellows, I used Y19, Y15 and Y13. These are quite bright yellows. You could definitely go for a softer tone if you wanted to, but I kind of like the brightness of these. It's quite a clean and simple card anyway, so I quite like the idea of the yellows popping off the page a little bit. So I'm going in with some shading towards the left-hand side and getting lighter towards the right. I kind of wanted it to look like my light source was coming in from the right-hand side, so that was the idea behind that. So just going in a couple of coats on that face part, and then just for the stripes I'm just doing one coat of each colour, and I think it turned out quite cute. As I say, these are quite bright colours, but I'm going for a very limited colour palette on this card. It's just white, yellow and black really, with a little hint of some light blue greens in there as well for the wings and the jars, but fairly limited colour palette, so I wanted them to be nice and bright. So just doing the same with my second bee, just going in, so I've got a darker shade onto the left hand side of the bee and then blending out towards lightest on the right. And these images are just so cute, so adorable. Hello Bluebird do some beautiful stamp sets. I really love their stamp sets. Haven't bought anything off them recently, not because I've not liked anything, I always want them all, but just because I've kind of spent my money elsewhere on stamps rather than on those ones. So they have got some gorgeous stamp sets. So now with my grey markers, I'm going with N8, N6 and N4. N8 is quite dark, so I'm using it quite sparingly, and I just used it, again, I'm shading on the left and then blending out lighter towards the upper right, and I've used that darkest colour for the little antennae and the little legs of the bees as well, just to make them kind of stand out. The great thing about Hello Bluebird stamps is their dies are really, really reasonably priced as well. I think they're some of the cheapest dies I've ever seen. So buying coordinating dies for them doesn't feel like you're breaking the bank. So I really like that about them. And the great thing is that it's a really good quality too. So if you haven't checked out Hello Bluebird before, I definitely recommend taking a look at their website. They've got some gorgeous stamp sets. So just filling in my second bee now, same thing. I'm using the darkest on the left-hand side and shading out towards lightest on the right-hand side. And their little faces are just so cute. I think they're adorable. So just going in with my stripes. I think I did the stripes in a slightly different order on my second bee. And once I've done that, I'm going to go in to do the wings. I'm using BG10 and BG11 for the little wings. I thought about leaving them so they were partly white, but I decided to shade the whole wings in. I'm going to go over them with a little bit of glitter. So yeah, I just thought I'd colour the whole wings in and shade them all in. And I think they turned out quite cute. I also am going to use the BG10 on this little guy's glasses, and I just literally go straight over the yellow colour that I've already placed down. It doesn't change it dramatically, but it just gives it a slightly bluish tinge, which does help it look like he is wearing glasses. I kind of like that look. You could obviously leave it, you wouldn't have to do that, but I kind of like the way that looks. And then obviously you could use some like glossy accents on top of those as well, and also on the glass jars. I didn't today. I just, as I said, I used a bit of glitter, and I thought that was good enough today. So just shading in my honey. I'm using the same yellow markers. I'm just using the two lighter markers for the honey, so the Y15 and the Y13. And there we go. That's the colouring done. I'm going in, this is the Lawn Fawn glitter pen, which I'm using. As I said, I'm using it for the, this is the white gel pen, which I'm using to just add some highlights. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So the white gel pen, I did put some little kind of diagonal lines on the glasses and on the glass jars to make it look like light reflecting off the glass. I like to do that. I don't know that it shows up particularly well in these colours, but I just like to do it so it looks like some glass. Here's the Lawn Fawn glitter pen now that I'm using. So I just gave it a good shake up, haven't used it for a little while. And I'm just going over the wings with that. And then I'm also going to go over the glass jars with that as well. Just to add a little bit of shine. And hopefully you can see that on screen. I think it turned out quite cute. The great thing about using a glitter pen rather than glossy accents is that you don't have to wait for it to dry quite so long. It dries pretty quick. So now I'm just using my black Jelly Roll pen just to go over the eyes to make them pop a little bit. And then I die cut those images off camera. So here's my card front, and I'm just going to place everything down and make sure I'm happy with where everything's going to go. And I'm kind of fiddling around with where I'm going to put everything. And then I decided that it was kind of looking a little bit too plain. I know it's a clean and simple card, but there are these little kind of lines, dotted lines to show the trails of the bees. And I thought it would be quite cool to add those, just to add a little bit of something extra to the card and just make it look not quite so plain. So I went ahead and stamped and die cut those off camera. And now I'm just going back to kind of placing everything down again and making sure I'm happy with where everything is going. And then I'm just going to again get my liquid glue and adhere everything to the card. So I think I reached for my Tonic liquid glue, which I have set on my desk. Yes, it's the Tonic Craft Tacky glue. And I'm just going to use that to make sure everything is stuck down really well to the card front. And I think it turned out quite nice. I'm quite pleased with this one. I always have ideas in my head and I think that they're going to turn out good. Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. I'm sure all of us go through that. I kind of sometimes go to sleep thinking about how I'm going to make the next card and what products I'm going to use and how it's going to work. And sometimes when I come to execute it, it doesn't work quite as well as I thought it was going to. But today I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out. I think my friend is really going to enjoy this card and it's going to bring a smile to her face. And at the end of the day, that's what card making is all about, is making somebody else happy. So I'm just placing that last little image down and making sure everything's stuck down properly. I'm going to take my scissors and just trim off the end of that little tail so it's flush with the card front. And there we go, that's the card front finished. I've taken a piece of Lawn Fawn sticky note cardstock and I have created a standard A2 size card base. And I'm going to stamp on the inside with a little sentiment. This is also one that comes with the Happy Bee Day stamp set from Hello Bluebird, and it says "You're the bee's knees," and I just thought that was so cute. And then I thought it would look good with this little guy there as well. So I'm just going to take my Versafine Onyx black ink and I'm going to stamp that down in the center of the card. And sometimes I do this, sometimes I don't, sometimes I leave my cards blank. But it's quite nice because I know who this is going to. I thought it would be nice to put a little sentiment on the inside as well. So going back with my Tonic craft tacky glue, and I'm going to stick that down onto the card front. Make sure I've got it the right way round. I have done that before and stuck it on the wrong way and then lived to regret it. But all good today. So there we go. All finished. But I decided that it wasn't quite finished. I wanted to add just a little bit more, so I found these little yellow sequins in my stash and I just took 3 of them and just kind of placed them around, and I quite like the way that looked, so I went ahead and stuck those down. Just add a little bit extra. I'm not so good at making clean and simple cards, I always have to add a little bit more. So I have this, this is like a sticky pencil. It's kind of like a jewel picker but in pencil form. It doesn't quite work quite as well as the jewel pickers. I really need to invest in one of those, but it just helps me to lift up the sequins and just place a dab of glue underneath and then pop the sequin on top. And there we go, that's the card finished, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out, and I think it's a sweet little card that will definitely make my friend smile on her birthday. I hope you enjoyed watching this today. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Please feel free to leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. And obviously feel free to subscribe to my channel. I'd love to see you back here again. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great day.